How are you?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think the last time we met was 2000 between 2011 and 13 probably.
Yeah, probably the last time was around that time.
Yeah,
I don't remember we have met after the training programs
yeah.
or any of the camps that we did.
We did one trek together where we were the instructors. That was the
Yeah,
Kas Patar.
the only trek or outing that we did together.
Yeah, and then we also did
Probably the
this.
very first one as well. Like the
Yeah, the
very first one.
the very first one for Kas Patar. So
Uh-huh.
people who don't know Kas Patar is basically in the district of Satara in Maharashtra, and was it named as the UNESCO World Heritage Site?
Yes, it is.
So
It
why
is
is
known
it special?
for So it is known for all the ephemeral plants. So basically, small shrubs which grow only during the monsoons and have superb flowering during that period of time. And they are specifically found only in that particular area. So they are endemic. That is being specifically found in that particular area. And uh, hence, it is declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and falls under the biodiversity hotspot of Western Ghats under Maharashtra.
Yeah, and most of these, some of these flowers are endangered species. Why are they endangered? Like, what's the reason?
So, since it is typically found in those particular plateaus, they have a very particular favorable climate which they grow in, and that is the reason why their population is not that prominent, I would say. So, since considering all the conditions, they are uh, less in terms of population and hence declared as endangered or critically endangered.
Yeah, I was reading about the Kaspatar online, and I saw that it grows on the volcanic rocks,
Yeah.
and the soil is hardly few centimeters, and these flowers literally grow on the rock.
Yeah, they literally grow on the rock. So, unlike all the volcanic eruptions that we usually see in and around, for example, lava eruptions happening from the top of a mountain. So that wasn't the case in the plateau formations in the Deccan Plateau area. So the lava oozed out from the cracks of the earth, and it just came out and settled on top of each other. So it literally formed flat layers on top of each other. So that is how we have plateaus and volcanic rock bed has been there on these plateaus. And yes, the flowers literally grow on the rock, and there is barely 1 or 1.5 inch of soil depth in that particular region.
Yeah, I've seen very disturbing videos and articles in the newspaper and articles online on social media where there are people going into the compounds of these. These flowers are basically fenced, right? And people jump the fence, go and stamp onto these endangered species and destroy these flowers just for the photographs. What do you think about it?
Well, yeah, that is the main reason why the forest department fenced the area in the first place. So, what they have made is they have made 4 sections on Cass Plateau, and they open only alternate, like only two of those four fences or compounds in that area in a particular year. So, they give the rest of the two plots a chance to grow back from the trampling which has happened the earlier year. So a number of people just to get good pictures of themselves lying on the flowers or to get pictures of the flowers itself. They just go on and about trampling the flowers. So yeah, that is the reason why they came up with all the restrictions and people still do go ahead and jump. But
Is there
now
any
with all the but with all the efforts by the forest department and a lot of organizations, people have started improving themselves
So is there
little
any
bit.
fine imposed on these people, or is there any legal action taken against them?
Yes, there is. There is not exactly a legal action, but there are forest department officials who constantly patrol the area. And if anyone is found trampling or disturbing the flowers or the plants in any possible way, they can stop them and they can just take them out of the compound and stop them from doing whatever they were doing.
Are they also limiting people going on to uh, seeing these flowers?
No.
Oh, there's no
Yeah.
limit for
So
people every day.
there is no limit of people. Just that what the good thing what they have done is they have started online bookings for the people who want to visit this area. So one has to book their place, and only the people who have booked a place or have a or hold a ticket to go onto the plateau can go. You cannot just randomly end up at the place and say I want to go and visit. So that is indirectly controlling the number of people who are visiting, but uh, there are almost on like long weekends during monsoons there are almost 1 or 2 odd lakh people on that area.
And what's the flowering season? Where when is it? Is it year round, or is it a specific season or a month where you can see the flowers?
So it is very specific to the season. These plants only grow during the rainy season, and rest of the year they just stay dry. And the flowering starts just after the monsoon starts receding a little, and which is around August and September.
In
So
August
they
and
just have
September.
a couple of they just have a couple of months to grow and propagate.
Yeah. So here are some beautiful pictures of the flower valley.
Or you can see someone standing in the flowers. There you go.
And this is so
Well,
stupid.
this is exactly what used to happen a few years ago. But fortunately, Forest Department came up with restrictions, and now they have made pathways, and people have to strictly follow those paths and not go and trample any of these flowers. So
Yeah,
you can see
there are
it
around
is a brilliant view.
850 odd types of species of flowers that you can find over here. And I think half of them, 50%, are endangered species. So this
And
really needs
scientists are
conservation.
actually coming up with new species still, like new to science and new to world.
I was seeing your Instagram profile, and you have a very badass tattoo that you've done on your back. What is it exactly?
I recently got it made. So, well, what you can see in this is a tree, which is the tree of life, which is called Yggdrasil. So basically, this is based on Norse mythology. So if you have a basic idea of what
The Viking
Thor,
culture?
the god of Viking culture, Thor, god of thunder, and just the basic Marvel reference, so people are more familiar to it. So, Norse mythology has a number of mythical beliefs. So, this tree, as such, what you can see is called Yggdrasil. So, this is the tree that they believe which connects 9 different realms, and we on Earth are Midgard. And so, you can in the middle of the tree, you can see a Viking compass. Around the compass there is Jormungandr, that is son of Loki, which is holding its tail in the mouth, and once it releases its tail from the mouth, the Ragnarok begins. So the Thor Ragnarok movie, and that is the end of the world. And
You also have a compass.
yeah,
So what does the compass indicate?
it points in all the directions. And Nordic people believe that if you possess this compass, whichever path you go, you'll always have protection of all the gods, and you'll just keep going in the right direction of whatever you want to achieve.
Yeah, these Vikings have their origin in the Scandinavian region of
Scandinavian
Europe,
countries.
the northern region where
Yeah.
places like Greenland, Iceland, and they were very brave warriors and almost captured the entire Europe, and also had their presence in the northern parts of like in the North America. Uh, I think
They're
later.
considered, they're actually considered the first people to find or discover American continent to the world. But Christopher Columbus came up and took all the credit.
So was it a what was binding these people together? Was it a culture or was it a religion or what was it?
It was definitely the culture because these people were crazy. If you have watched the series of Vikings, they have some different ideologies altogether on which they used to follow. There used to be sacrifices, and they were brutal. Like their punishments were brutal, and yeah, the culture was the basic thing more than gods. And if you are interested in Vikings and all the mythology and everything, there are a couple of books. Plus, after the series, there is another Netflix series called The Last Kingdom, where they show how Vikings or Norse people almost took over England, and how England came into existence later on.
Yeah, this was something
So
in the
they,
11th.
as the culture, yeah, yeah. So these people had almost reached up till Russia, and that is how Rus Vikings came into existence, like Russian Vikings.
Yeah, this these Viking
So
culture
they have
was.
references all the way up till Kiev.
Yeah, this Viking culture has had a lot. These people were blooming a lot during the 11th century ish, 10th century, 11th century, and made quite a bit of progress throughout the Northern American continent, European continent. And you were saying they were also in Russia?
They almost reached Russia. They were
Nice.
like, there are traces, at least in the series that they have showed. They had gotten in touch with the people from Kiev. So that is current Ukraine, I guess.
Nice. So, what got you into the journey of environment?
Oh, it is difficult to say. Just it basically started with bird watching. I started going on to the hills and parks and water bodies nearby to see what birds do you get over there. Basic, like going through basic books which help you identify the kind of birds. And I had no clue I would ever get into this field till my 12th grade. Like I didn't even know that there is a field, like a career in environmental sciences, and you have a bachelor's course, a degree, graduation course till I cleared my 12th grade. So after that, the entire journey began, and it just took a different turn altogether.
Yeah, I've been to few bird watching sessions, and it takes a lot of patience for you to be to do bird
It
watching.
does, it does.
And I think I don't understand most of the birds. Like I don't know what belongs to what. So for me, it wasn't really interesting. But I'm pretty sure for people like you who love the environment so much, who are into it day and night, it's heaven for you.
It definitely is. It definitely is.
So, what projects have you worked on related to the environment?
So, like, since we are already on to the part of journey and how I got into this, as I got into environmental sciences as a degree course, I got to know about a number of wildlife projects or projects which were already going on in environmental field. So I started volunteering on them. So one of them was actually Kars Plateau. So I was assisting a scientist named Prerna Agarwal, who was working on her PhD thesis over there. And I worked with her for almost 20, 25 odd days to count the number of species which are found in a quadrant of 1 by 1 meter. So actually count one particular, like the number of individuals of one particular species in that quadrant, and the work just went on for 20-25 odd days. Then there was one project which was going under uh, Thane Forest Department and Mumbai Forest Department at Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Mumbai, which is right in the middle of the city and surrounded by humans all over. And the agenda of the project was to understand the diet of the leopards which go around. So we actually used to clean the poop of leopards sitting in one of the forest department quarters. So there were different set of volunteers who used to go and collect all the poop, and we used to be the ones sitting with gloves and washing it and seeing what all parts do we get in the poop. Most of it was hair, but there were interesting experiences during that time. We found so many claws and nails of cats because they were prominently feeding on cats, like domestic cats and dogs around. There was one scary incident when a friend of mine was sitting next to me and cleaning his set of poop, his set of leopard poop, and uh, he just got startled, and I was like, "What happened?" And he just showed it to me, and we could literally see the top portion of a finger, and
A
which was
human
black
finger?
with which was black and with an intact nail. So we got shit scared in the beginning, and we thought it was a human finger, but later got to know that it was a langur, which is a kind of monkey, and which has very human-like hands, and which is black. So we figured that the leopard has eaten a langur, and one of the fingers hasn't got digested, and it is still there in the poop. So it was one scary experience to just uh, stumble into a finger with the nail intact on it.
So when you guys go to scavenge these leopard poops, do you just do you have a path set path that you're going to go on this path and you're going to find some poop, or is it just random walking into the national park and finding it? Like, how does it work?
I'm sure initially it is random because for you to understand which, so basically leopards follow territories, their own particular set of area which they keep patrolling and keep a control of. So their paths of going around that territory are pretty much the same. And one of the ways of marking their territory is poop. So they will continuously come and poop on the same portions of the area, or the path. So it is easy to understand. But in the initial time, it is difficult to identify a particular territory of the leopard, or just say that there is an existence of the leopard in that area, because they're super elusive. So after you get a sense of or idea of where they're going around and the paths that they are using, then it is relatively easy to get all the scat samples.
When these leopards mark their territory with the poop, is it an unsaid rule in the leopard community that you're not supposed to enter into this area? And do they
Very much,
follow
very much.
the borders?
They do follow unless and until they want to actually invade or encroach and challenge the existing owner of the territory.
Yeah, that's very common with cats too. Like, if you have domestic cats, like if you have multiple domestic cats in a house, every cat will go and pee around specific corners to mark its territories. So uh, I
It is
mean,
it is a basic feline instinct for them to do so. So it goes the same way with leopards. Just the case that they are more aggressive towards it and defend it with their life.
so one of the reason why these leopards are coming into human areas is because we have encroached most of the forest, right? And they don't have enough land. Um, I have a farm near Vagoli in Pune, and
Uh-huh.
there are several cases where these leopards are hiding inside the sugarcane, and this sugarcane is fully grown, so it's almost 5.5 to 6 feet, where people don't usually go inside, so there's no disturbance at all for these leopards. And they come outside at night and attack goats, cows, sometimes people
Feral
who
dogs.
are sleeping outside their houses.
Oh, damn.
um, so why do they come out uh, in in the, what do you say, people's territories? Don't they have enough food inside their own territory?
So the entire explanation in itself has the answer to it. So leopards are super adaptive. They get adapted to a particular area very easily. They adjust to it super well. So sugarcane, once it starts growing, it as you said, it isn't touched, or apart from watering it, no one ventures into it for almost a year. So it is a safe space for them to just go in their sleep, because no one is going to come and disturb them. So they have a very good refuge area and a resting spot for them to laze around through the day. And since they are pretty much nocturnal, they just come out and find the easiest prey possible, which is the domestic animals. And humans are even more easier, because they, like, compared to rest of the animals that we usually have around, we are not that fast. And even though we all have a number of defensive options available, but basically we are not that fast to defend ourselves from a leopard running towards us. But there are ways to deal with it. Yes, one of the reasons is the encroachment that has been happening through all the sides. And sugarcane is another reason. So as I explained, they just give all the kinds of necessary survival favorable conditions for them. You water the sugarcane, they have continuous running supply of water. They just don't need to move anywhere. They have a place to stay throughout the year, and they just have to walk out of the field, uh, hunt a sheep, goat, dog, pig, whatever is available easily, drag it back to the farm, feed without getting disturbed at all. And they just pop out only when someone stumbles onto them, or when the sugar cane is actually harvested. Till then, people usually don't even get to know that there are leopards around.
So
So yes,
uh, do they actually live in the wilderness? Do we have enough wilderness or forest in and around Maharashtra or say India, that we are not encroaching their land, or is it that we've already encroached a lot of it and that's the reason they're coming out?
yeah, so we have, so it is both the cases actually. There are enough uh, amounts of uh, areas, or the wilderness areas, which are natural habitats for them to survive in, or where they thrive. Uh, but since we are continuously encroaching, they don't have any other option but to adapt to the upcoming habitats which they can take up. So it just goes both way around. And since they are adapting, since they have all the necessary supplies, they are actually like flourishing in terms of population. And once the new pups or new cubs come up, they just get used to the same kind of habitat, and they just go in search of similar habitats. That is how they just go on spreading in similar areas. So population outside the protected areas or outside natural habitats is constantly increasing. Plus, we are equally encroaching their natural habitats. So it is just going both way around.
So for most of the farmers, I would say, who have farmlands pretty, who have sugarcane farms near Vagoli area, uh, what are they supposed to do when they have an encounter with a leopard? What is the self defense that they can apply?
What we can actually do is, so since I've been working with the Grassland Trust and Rescue, we are actually in the process of a project called Project Triadic, and we do go and conduct awareness sessions for the villagers, uh, to give them an idea of how do you coexist with the leopards around you, and how not to get in trouble, or what to do when you actually stumble across or come across a leopard. So one, in this works in most of the animals. Just stay quiet. uh, don't run away, or just don't go haywire. Don't panic. Just stay quiet. Just keep looking at the animal and slowly move back instead of turning around and running away. Just keep looking at the animal and slowly move back. Once you give the animal a safe space to pass, they will just go and keep their own safe distance equally. Then they'll just walk away. That is a simple equation with the leopards. They just don't try and come close to humans because they know we are a threat as well. So once you give them enough distance, they'll just walk away. They
In
won't
your
do
in
anything.
your self defense, if you harm the animal, is there any action taken against you?
Yeah. So we have laws. So we have Wildlife Protection Act, which was declared in 1972, and under which leopards are given topmost legal protection. So there are schedules which the law describes. So it goes from Schedule 1 to Schedule 5. Schedule 1 is the topmost, and in which the leopard exists. So if you get into any kind of, say, even holding a wild animal as a pet, to actively killing or poaching the animal, you have legal sentences, you have imprisonment, you have fines, all sorts of things, and you can only get out of these cases if you are Salman Khan.
So, uh, one of the states in the US, the state of Texas, it has very lenient laws for wildlife. So you can
Mhm.
literally tame wildlife or keep them as domestic pets. Have you seen that documentary, The Tiger King?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
It's not based in Texas, but like those are the people who you'll find in
Similar
Texas who
conditions.
have
Yeah,
tigers as their pets. Uh, even who's the
alligators, pythons.
alligators. But some of the areas, there is Everglades National Forest, which is to the south of Florida. I've
Mhm.
been to the Everglades. So there is the Indian tribe. So Indian are the native Indians, obviously. But those areas are protected by the Indian tribes, and these people are allowed to hunt alligators in these areas. And there
Uh-huh.
are even so they are allowed to hunt because the population of alligators is increasing on a
Is
large
high.
scale.
Uh-huh.
And to keep their population under control, they are allowed only these specific Indian tribal people. They are called as Mikusuki. That tribe is called Mikusuki Indian tribe. These people are allowed to hunt these alligators. If you go into these areas, they actually have alligator wrestling shows where these people do wrestling with the alligator. So you can pay for a ticket, sit inside. The crazy videos that you've seen on YouTube or something, I've seen that in person where those people put hand in the mouth of alligator, feed the alligator, put their faces inside the alligator's face. It's crazy, dude. And towards the end of the show, there are these baby alligators. They tie some tape around their mouth, and you can hold it into your
Hold it
hand
over.
and click a picture. I've done that. It's so scary, but it's the closest that you can get to these alligators. And there are some restaurants that also serve alligator meat. So I've been to one of these restaurants, and I read their menu that fried alligator. I thought it might be some chicken dish, and they're just calling it alligator because we are so close to the alligator. And I asked him, "Is this real alligator?" And he said yes. And it was although I didn't try it, but they do serve it. And they in US, hunting is allowed. I'm not sure about the hunting laws in India, but here in the state where I live, in the state of Ohio, the deer population is abandoned. And because you need to get the deer under control, every year they issue these tags to people. So you have to apply for a tag. Each person gets one tag, I believe. So with this tag, you can go and hunt deer, and once you hunt the deer, you have to put the tag on that deer, and that's it. So with one tag, you can hunt one deer, and people usually bring this deer home and store it as meat and eat it over the year, keep preserving it in the refrigerators and all. But hunting is a thing over here. So
Yeah,
what
so
are the
we
hunting
have
laws in India?
had so much hunting that has happened over the years, but now it is legally banned. But there is like as we discussed earlier about the Wildlife Protection Act, they have a schedule where they term these animals as vermin, and which includes wild boar, nilgai, um, animals which basically cause or affect the agricultural crop in some or the other way. So people can apply for permission saying there is a herd of wild boar which has been attacked or raiding my crops and needs to be killed or controlled. You get permissions to hunt them down, but it is after permissions. You cannot go and hunt any other animal, but only the animals which are declared under the vermin section,
So
only which are
is
having
it
some
you
negative
that's
impact.
going to go and hunt these animals, or do the government people come there and bring it under control? Like, how does it work?
No, government doesn't do this. As far as the kind of knowledge that I have, we have to apply and we can go and hunt them.
Nice. Yeah, this deer is a big problem here in Ohio, at least, because if you're going on a highway at around 100 miles, which is how much, 130 kilometer per hour or
Kilometer
something,
per
and
hour,
imagine a deer comes in the middle,
just popping out.
you're popping out of nowhere and you crash into the deer. Almost sometimes this deer dies, but most of the times it's just injured, but your car is fucked. Like, your car is fully damaged. But I think there are laws that if you kill a deer on a roadkill, you can take it home and use it as game meat. So
Oh,
there are so they call these people as game wardens. Game
uh-huh.
is basically these wild animals that can be hunted.
Hmm.
So people get those game permits, and they go into the wild and hunt, and these game wardens actually keep a check on the hunters and making sure that poaching is not happening. And
Or
if they at
excessive
all
hunting is not happening.
yeah, if they at all catch you hunting without a permit or something, they'll confiscate everything. They'll literally confiscate your gun, even the car that you've used to go to that place for hunting. So it has very strict laws. One of my friend had hunted a deer once, and he gave me they dry the deer meat, and it's called a deer jerky. So it's like a
Uh-huh.
red color thing, and it was tasty. I tried deer over here. It was really tasty. When I was in India, I ate only chicken and sheep and all seafood. But over here, I've tried multiple meats, and it's a beautiful experience trying the all of these meats.
I'm sure it is. Like we still have a few places in rural areas where people just hunt a wild boar and there is a huge party. They just share all the meat with all the villagers in that area and they cook it and have fun. So that is something that goes on. There is a particular area where I was working, like one of the other voluntary projects. This was in Uttarakhand, and this was probably the best volunteering experience on field I've ever had in terms of working on a project. So this is like Chopta as a place has become quite famous now, quite touristy place it has turned into. But there is a village just before Chopta, that is Mandal, where we were staying.
Is this in
And there are
Maharashtra?
huge, no, this is in Uttarakhand,
Oh,
North.
Uttarakhand. Okay.
Uh-huh. So we were working there in peak winters, so January, February, where it was snowing on the mountain peaks and higher altitudes. But this area has got cliffs, and there are a few, like a couple, Himalayan Thar and Goral Sero, three species of mountain goats, and which graze on these cliffs. And people actually wait for them to fall off the cliff so that they can just take the animal, the dead animal, and have a feast out of it. So earlier they used to hunt these animals, but ever since the wildlife laws got stricter, they actually keep an eye on these animals falling off the cliff, and wherever they get a chance, they just uh, score all the meat and cook it, which they otherwise would have been doing quite openly.
So, are there enough people in the forest department in our country to keep an eye for illegal poaching in India?
There are, like, from my perspective, there are two ways. Uh, One, no, there is not enough staff in the Indian Forest Department, because it is a kind of job which is looked down upon. Like, it is, in case of government services, it is an option, more like an optional course. Like, people either want to go into um, administrative or uh, political backgrounds or something of that sort, which gives more economic benefit. And forest department comes as an optional part, like it just uh, the third option, whether you don't, whether if you don't get into the rest of the two, which are considered the best ones. So most of the staff which is into forest department is the kind of people who didn't get into the higher services as they believe. So, and there are few people who are actually interested in forest services, and those are the people who are actually making a difference in this field. uh, Plus, yeah, so that comes to the point where people, whether they're interested to work in this field or not. One, there is not enough staff, and second, whatever existing staff is there, 50% of them are not really interested in working towards wildlife. They have to be motivated to go and work in the field and give them the importance of wildlife. So there have been times where we ourselves have to go and conduct training programs for forest department people to tell them about the wildlife that they are controlling, basically, or they are responsible for. So yeah, that is a kind of sad state. But when it comes to charismatic species like tigers or elephants, which gain a lot of tourism and economic benefit through tourism, uh, those forest areas are forest officials and departments are quite efficient in terms of controlling the poaching and all the cases. But when it comes to less charismatic species, for example, hyenas, wolves, foxes, which look like ordinary dogs or neglected animals. The departments in those areas are not that efficient, and that is something which needs to be pushed.
So, when
So,
you go out to train these forest officials, what is your coursework like, and what exactly are you teaching these forest officials to do?
so we have to start from scratch, where we have to understand whether they know their wildlife or not. So we have to understand which area are they coming from, since they have areas allotted. So that particular area will have a specific habitat. That specific habitat will have certain animals over there which prefer that kind of a habitat. So we have to study this and understand that, then conduct presentations or quizzes to understand whether they know their wildlife or not. So we get a basic idea of how much knowledge they actually have. So from that, we can start designing the course or the schedule on which they need to be trained. So we have to go all the way from identifying animals to dealing with conflict situations altogether. So it just goes from identifying counting techniques or field techniques like camera trapping, how to observe, how to use a camera, how to use different field gear, and then going into managing conflict situations since they are on a rise. So that is how usually forest department training goes.
So, what is the incentive that organizations like your organization gets by training these forest officials? Is it because you guys are interested in that environment, or do you have funding from the government or any sort of funding or help from other organizations to conduct these trainings?
Honestly, we didn't have any kind of incentive to work towards their training. It was just our own interest to and passion to just teach them and somewhere contribute to the department, so that because since they are the people who hold the legal rights and who hold majority of the area on which they can have a control on. So if these people are good, we are uh, indirectly going to help in conservation. So that is the basic outcome out of it. So funding in terms, it is all arranged by the forest department because we are going over there and conducting training for them, which rather they should be doing for their own staff. So they just make all the arrangements and provide us stay food if that is at all necessary. But there is no other incentive or benefit that we personally get out of it, apart from hopefully expecting some better officials the next time we visit the area.
So when you guys train these forest officials, do they implement your training into their day-to-day activities?
They do, they do. We have observed that after trainings, almost 70% of the lot learn something new. And since they learn something, some new techniques, they are always interested in implementing them because what they have learned through their courses are the age-old techniques which have come through traditional knowledge which has been getting passed on. So they are quite active in terms of using these techniques and implementing them on field while they are working, while they're patrolling.
And
So
what
it is
what
actually a good thing.
what exactly do these forest officials do? What exactly is their duty when it comes to forest, when it comes to environment?
So in case of forest department, it really depends on the position that they are working on. So it can be a daily wage worker who is a who is just another patrol guy who has to patrol the area which he or she has been assigned, and that is the only work, and inform the higher officials, which can be a divisional forest officer or a range forest officer who overlooks multiple of such beat guards or patrolling people. So again, these range and divisional forest officers are working for a higher post, which overlooks another set of multiple RFOs and DFOs. So that is how the hierarchy goes, and with each and every step, their own uh, kind of work and expectations differ. So
Uh,
it can
doc-
go all the way from holding legal rights or uh, taking legal cases to just patrolling the area and checking for any poaching activities or encroachments that have been happening onto the forest department's land.
do they have enough authorities as a police officer to put people behind bars if they catch someone?
They do, they do. So again, there is an entire loop of people which are involved, but even so, since childhood, we have always seen parrots and parakeets as, in cages as pets. But now it has become super strict. Like if you are found with parakeets as your pet, you can directly get imprisoned because it is against the wildlife laws. and a minimum of 50 grand of fine is put up as a punishment.
You were
So you
talking.
cannot, so you basically cannot keep any wild animal as a pet or hunt it without permission unless it is declared as a vermin.
Yeah,
In short,
I wasn't aware that parakeet is a wild animal. Sorry, wild bird. But
yeah.
good to
So
know.
yeah, so we have always learned like domestic animals or domestic birds always involved doves or pigeons and parrots and parakeets and lovebirds and all sorts of exotic birds. But when it comes to species like parakeets, which are found as wild populations as well, they are not domestic anymore, or not. It doesn't fall under the category of domestic birds. It is very much a wild bird.
So, are there any actions being taken against these pet shops who sell these birds?
Yes, there are. So if you whenever you come back to Pune, just go and take a round in the pet shops and ask them for a parakeet. They will either have some smuggled hold of a certain few birds, but otherwise they cannot openly uh,
Sell those.
sell any of these parakeets. I'm
Yeah,
just stating a possibility that they might have some smuggled birds caged somewhere in the corner.
yeah. It should be stopped at the source. I mean,
Exactly.
you can't just go to people
More,
and fine people because they are getting it from these pet shops. And if you really want to stop this, it has to stop from the pet shops, right?
yeah, so more than the pet shops or the source, demand is what should be addressed first. So if people get aware that parakeets are wild and shouldn't be kept as pets, and there is a legal action happening on it, people get aware that this is what is going to happen to us if we do so. So the demand goes down. Once the demand goes down, the pet shop owners do not actually keep those birds because it doesn't make sense in keeping those, because that is not going to give them any kind of benefit out of it. So you cut down on the demand, you directly affect any of these smuggling activities or source activities that have been happening.
You talked about these NGOs that you're working with, Rescue and the Grassland. The what is the
The
name of
Grasslands Trust.
the Grassland Trust? So, are there a number of NGOs that are coming up in the past few years to help protect the environment?
There are a number of them. So it starts basically from a number of institutions which hold environmental courses. There are a few which are specifically for wildlife and into biodiversity and not just a broad scope of environment. Then it goes down to a number of organizations which work towards just the birds or just domestic animals, uh, or otherwise most of the NGOs are working to particular areas. Uh, Say for example, it is not an organization as such, but if you have heard about Big One, which
Yes.
is
I went there for bird
sort
watching.
of
I've been to that lake for
I
bird
can see that
watching around 15
expression on
years
your
back.
face.
Yeah, what is it about Big One?
So the local people over there are getting benefited with the kind of birds which come down to this area, and so it is a sort of organization that they have where they take or conduct ecotourism for people. So that is how awareness happens. In return, since they are getting some economic benefit out of it, they are protecting these areas. They are trying not to harm these areas in some possible way. uh, then there is a huge protest actually happening tomorrow. So if you know Veta Tekdi or ARI Tekdi
Yes.
in Pune, which is right in the middle of city, our corporation has declared three different routes of roads passing through the Tekdi, which is probably the only source of vegetation or which actually forms the lungs of the city, which sequesters a lot of carbon which we generate. And the corporation is planning to pass two roads by clearing one of the hill slopes, like a portion of the hill slope. and one tunnel which is going to open on three different areas of the city. So it is directly going to affect the vegetation, which is going to affect the wildlife in that area. And once you make a tunnel, it is going to affect the groundwater table as well. So there are multiple factors getting affected through it. And uh, I am guessing there are going to be around hundreds of people gathering around tomorrow morning to protest against these developmental projects. Like the projects which doesn't make sense are going to affect the very environment which is keeping us alive. So uh, a number of such organizations are coming up now to either work in for uh, environment, either in terms of creating awareness, or let's say as simple as controlling the waste or managing the waste that we generate, segregation, reuse, recycle. And then there are people who actually work in the field of conservation and towards wildlife. So there are different categories of NGOs, and yes, the number is rising slowly, which is a really good thing.
So, when you work in rescue and the Grassland Trust, what exactly do you do in these organizations?
So when it comes to rescue, it is a different organization altogether, which is based on veterinary knowledge, and where uh, it is a transit and care center for all kinds of animals, whether domestic or wild. So that is where we just come into existence, where they need any help with wild animals in having some knowledge about them, about their ecology, or the kind of habitat they survive in, the kind of food that they need. So that is where we actually come into place and help them to rehabilitate or uh, say soft release the animal which got rescued. So that is about the rescue. But when it comes to the Grassland Trust, we are currently working all the way from Saswat to Baramati, Solapur, Dhule, Nashik, all the areas where open grassland systems are found, which is not a dense forest canopy, but an open land which is as good as considered as a wasteland. And since there is no forest, people consider there is no environment, there is no wildlife. So we are working in terms of making people aware of the wildlife which is there through social media, through filming documentaries, to working with filmmakers to help them film the wildlife for bigger films which will go worldwide. Then conservation projects where or research projects where we'll study these wildlife much like in more depth to understand them better and to convey that message to the locals in a better way, and working with the forest department to help them conserve the existing wildlife, because after all they are the people who uh, hold everything together, all these aspects. So that is what the Grassland Trust is currently doing.
So, what's the major grassland on the Deccan Plateau? Is it the savanna?
Yeah, it is the savanna.
So,
So
yeah, go ahead.
the Deccan Plateau has always been considered as the major savanna. But the recent, like it is a very interesting thing. I don't know if you remember Ashish Nerlekar.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the person who conducted all the botany sessions during our training. So he actually has been studying all these systems in the botanical background, and all the botanists in the recent times have actually uh, come to a conclusion that India, all the way to Himalayas, has always been a kind of grassland, but there are tree canopies on it. So it is not just a forest, but it has always had a base substratum of grass growing over there, which is why we have a number of deer and herbivore population around. So if we call it savanna, it is all over India.
What are the endangered species that we have in the savanna grasslands?
So to start with, we had Asiatic cheetahs or Indian cheetahs, which Britishers and all the kings efficiently managed to hunt all of them down and make it possible for them to go extinct from our land. So it starts over there. Then we have predatory species like Indian grey wolves. People actually don't believe that we have wolves in India, but we do. Then there is another animal called hyena. So when we talk about hyenas, we always imagine African hyenas going behind lions and cheetahs and leopards. But we do have hyenas in India as well, which are striped and not spotted, and which
Black
actually,
stripes.
yeah, black stripes. Yeah, so we do have hyenas in India, which is another endangered animal. Then we have foxes, jackal, a number of herbivores like black buck, which people actually got to know more about because of Salman Khan, since he hunted a couple of them down. Otherwise, majority of the Indian population didn't know that black buck is a kind of antelope that is there in India, or the rachinkaras, which is Indian gazelle. So we always see gazelles on African savannas, which are there, which we can see through all the documentary films on Discovery and National Geographic. But we do have those as well. So there is a huge variety of these are the bigger mammals I'm talking about. There are number of reptiles. There are insects, arachnids, like scorpions and spiders. There is of massive diversity in these particular areas which are endangered. There are number of birds uh, which only prefer grasslands as their habitat and which are ground dwelling. They don't make their nests on trees. They are like basically trees are alien to them. They don't know what to do with trees. So they nest on ground. So they basically need open areas to survive. So yes, there are a lot of endangered animals in and around food and all the grassland ecosystems that we have.
So here in the US, there are 63 national parks. Obviously, these national parks are protected by the forest rangers, and no hunting is allowed whatsoever. All the trees, plants, animals are protected completely. You have to pay a fees to go into these some of these national parks. Um, and usually most of these national parks you're not allowed to go after sunset, so it's only from sunrise to sunset. There are few spots where you can pitch your tent and camp, but you need to take permission to go in to do that sort of stuff. So are there any nationally protected parks or forests or areas in India, and what exactly are we doing to make sure that we are doing conservation of these wildlife species so that they don't get extinct?
So yes, we do have a number of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, protected areas, uh, specific biosphere reserves all over the country, and it very much goes quite similar to what you have in the states, where you can go and take a ride in the forest from sunrise to sunset. Just that we have to take a lunch break where we have to go back outside the protected area, and you cannot camp in these protected areas. So that is how it goes, and you cannot. So I'm guessing you can drive around in your own vehicle in these national parks you have
Yes.
out there.
S- Uh, so there are few areas where you can drive your own car, but there are
Mm-hmm.
set roads. You cannot go off road. You have to stay on the specific path. Or there are some areas where they have shuttles, so you have to stand in line, get into one of those shuttles, and only the people working in that forest area or for the federal government are the people allowed to drive those shuttles in those areas. So there are two types, I would say.
Quite similar to what we have over here. So wildlife sanctuaries is a kind of area where you can drive around with your own vehicle. But when it comes to national parks, you cannot take your own vehicle inside. There are vehicles assigned by the forest department with a compulsory guide and their own driver from the forest department staff, and they have to strictly follow the paths which have been designated, and you cannot go anywhere off the path. You have to stick to it, and not go anywhere else. So yes, that is how very similarly it goes around.
So when it comes to conservation, what steps are we taking to make sure that the endangered species are protected?
So when it comes to national parks and tourism, uh, so there are two categories in those kind of forests. So there is a buffer zone where human-induced activities are happening, or sorry.
It's okay.
So people can actually work or have agricultural fields in those buffer areas, in designated areas. But when it comes to core, that is where a certain part of the core is assigned for tourism, but rest of it is restricted, where the wildlife stays untouched, and where only forest department can patrol the area and uh, conserve it in a way and keep it away from the humans as much as possible, and poachers as the condition.
Dude, I still remember we went to the Kaspata trip where we were near the Thosegar waterfalls,
Yes, yes.
and there was this snake crossing our path, and I was so fucking scared of the snake because that's the only reptile species that I'm scared of. And you went and you pulled that snake out of the trees by its tail just to show it to everybody. How do you do that? How do you get trained to not
If,
get
if
scared
if
of
you
snakes?
remember, we actually went down to see if the spot is open for people and if it is worth going. And we didn't even reach the waterfall, which is the actual view, but we just got everyone inside to see the snake and not the waterfall.
Yeah, but that was
So
one of the
it
highlights
just,
of our trip.
oh, definitely. No one would have expected seeing a snake up close, taking pictures. A few of them actually had the guts to even touch it, I guess.
I
So it just came with experience. Uh, just trying and handling number of snakes while in the wild, understanding their behavior. I till today I have kept a rule or followed it to the day that not to handle any of the venomous snakes because it is a direct threat to my life. Plus, a kind of certain set of population of snakes just stay untouched from my end.
right.
So it is more of non-venomous snakes which I have handled, and while in the process, I have also gotten bitten almost thrice. But yeah, it was more of a learning curve to understand how they behave and what shouldn't be done while handling a snake.
So me working a 9 to 5 job and not remotely close to the environment, how can I help to conserve the environment or to protect the wildlife? What can I do?
You can do the exact same thing of what I am doing. So environment or wildlife is not my career. So we have a family business where I'm working in traditional perfumery, which is a different set of career altogether. So that is more of my income source, I would say. And since I have always been interested in terms of wildlife, all these projects and experiences and getting people to experience all these kind of wildlife or natural habitats is what can help someone in helping or just contributing towards conservation. As simple as this very talk or the podcast or video which will go up, you can understand so many people who have never heard about Indian wildlife or wildlife in Pune are going to get aware about the existing diversity. So it is a kind of conservation that you are doing. It is a kind of work of awareness that you are doing without knowing that you are doing so. So anything from just spreading awareness on social media to going and understanding how people stay and what problems do they face and coming up with solutions in terms of wildlife or uh, just showing them and making them understand the importance of wildlife in or whatever wildlife we have is something that contributes towards the conservation of it. So it is not a huge rocket science that you have to spend hours and hours on field and come up with research projects and publish papers, that is when you will contribute towards conservation. No, it is simple awareness and just talking to people.
Yeah, one of the basic thing is use your common sense when you go and visit
Absolutely.
these wildlife places, because you wouldn't like somebody coming into your house and touching the things in your house or moving things around or kicking you or throwing stones at you. And obviously you shouldn't do
Exactly.
when you go into the house of the wild animals. Like you can't be doing disturbing their life when you are in a forest. Um, when so I've been to the Yellowstone National Park here in the US, and
Mhm.
there are these natural geysers, and um, so to go close to a geyser, they have made these wooden decks. So these wooden decks lead you
Walkways. Uh-huh.
walkways. They lead you to very close to the geyser. You're not supposed to step off of the deck, and most of the people follow the rules and not pelt stones at this. So the basic rule is use your common sense and don't disturb the environment. Is what I would say from my end. Um, so since we've done a lot of deforestation, is it will it help if we go and plant trees on these slopes or in the forest, or what do you think?
It really depends. Like the best possible solution is restoration. Uh, it's just protect the area from any human activities that are happening, and the area, the forest or whatever trees which are there, they will start regenerating, regrowing, or coming back to life and getting all the natural systems going on their own. You don't have to do anything but just protect the area, because when it comes to planting trees, most of the plantation happens with half knowledge.
I saw
So
your
we
webinar when you were explaining this exact thing where planting trees sometimes does not help. Can you
it doesn't
explain
it
that a little
doesn't
bit?
so as we are talking about grasslands, which in itself, the name itself has grass in it. So the major vegetative content of this ecosystem is grass and not big trees. Or as we discussed about Karst Plateau, it has a very thin layer of soil. So large trees are not going to grow in those particular areas, how much ever you try, because there is immediate rock. So they need, larger trees need soil to grow. But if you understand, grass has fibrous roots which spread along the surface. It doesn't go deep. So that is the main difference. Like if you go and start planting trees onto grasslands, it is going to change the ecosystem, if at all it survives. And you are going to change the vegetative content of it. So with a good will of trying to help the environment, you are actually negatively affecting it by planting the wrong kind of trees, which rather shouldn't be there in that area.
So what
So
should be done?
understanding what needs to be planted, and before what it is, if something needs to be planted. So if you can go for restoration, you don't need to plant anything. But if there is no chance of restoration happening, uh, then that is the only case when you go and plant trees on it. You just don't go rampant planting, because that is going to negatively affect. Plus, if you go on rampant plantation of trees, you will plant 1,000 trees, but will you be able to take care of them? Is a major question. Will you be able to make them survive through the season for them to be self-sustaining? Is another one.
Most of the farmers in India have farmland from their ancestors, and they've been doing monocrop agriculture where they grow one single crop every year, and the soil has lost its nutritional content. It's not yielding as much produce or as much product that it's supposed to yield. So what people do is use pesticides, chemicals. which are to grow,
Fertilizers.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
fertilizers as nutrition for these artificial nutrition for these plants to grow. How is it affecting the wildlife?
It is directly affecting because as simple as so fertilizers is for soil, but when we come to pesticides and insecticides, it directly enters the food chain. So once you spray a pesticide or an insecticide on a crop which has certain insects on them, say for example some caterpillars or butterflies or grasshoppers, it enters their system. There are different animals and birds which feed on them. So one bird will feed on 10 grasshoppers, for example. So the poison or the insecticide or pesticide which is there on these 10 grasshoppers is going to end up in one particular bird or animal which is feeding on them. So that is bioaccumulation. So all the pesticide gets accumulated into one animal. So that is how it just goes on passing through the hierarchy of the food chain, because there'll be another bigger animal feeding onto these birds or animals which are feeding on these insects. So it just goes on increasing and just goes on affecting the entire food chain. So it is a direct effect once as soon as we start using chemical pesticides and insecticides.
So should we
We
stop?
have,
Should we stop doing monocrop agriculture?
yeah, that can be one of the possible solutions to it. I'm not that knowledgeable when it comes to agriculture, but I'm guessing if you plant leguminous plants or pulses, that increases nitrogen content in the soil, which increases the nutritive value, which is going to help the major crop that we have been cultivating. So just changing the crop pattern or adding a few cultivations probably might help. Plus, there are organic ways of controlling the insects and pests as well, instead
I
of the chemical parts.
I was going through your Instagram profile, and you have some beautiful wildlife pictures on your profile. And the best one I found was the lizard with the fan
Uh-huh.
throat. Man,
Yeah, yeah.
I need to show this picture to everybody. Hold on while I cast it. There it is.
Uh-huh.
So people who are listening to this, it's can you can I think you should be better able to explain this than me.
So this is again a fan-throated lizard which is found on grassland. So it is not a forest species which doesn't need huge trees and everything to survive. It just needs open land, open to sky. So as you can see, it has a vibrant fan on its throat. So which is why a fan-throated lizard. So that fan is called a dewlap, and only males have these vibrant colors which they use to woo females and mate. So that's the main reason why they have these superb colors. And the other one is to display uh, the colors to other contending males, saying that I'm powerful than you or I'm stronger than you, just stay out of my way. This is my area, and whatever females that you are seeing in that area are mine, is what the fan-throated lizard basically does.
Yeah, these colors are so beautiful. Red, blue, yellow. Man, where did you find that?
So this is actually from very much from the city. This is in Kothrood, Mahatma Society, and you get it on Veta Tekri area. So it is right in the middle of the city. You don't have to go anywhere else.
Yeah, I think this is a picture from Kaspatar, I
Yeah,
think.
this is Kas.
You got
So you can
beautiful
see how
pictures.
people go and just pose while being in the flowers.
Is this stargazing?
Yeah, this is actually Panchgani. If you remember Panchgani campsite, the picture is from that campsite.
I would highly recommend everybody to go on Pratik's Instagram wall and see all the pictures that he has clicked. There are some beautiful, beautiful pictures on his wall. A tattoo of
Thanks,
an
man.
owl too.
Yeah, that was my first ever tattoo I got. We were working like Gaurang, Ashish, and I were working on spotted owlets in Ferguson College for almost 3 years. We published a couple of research papers on them. So it was very much worth getting a tattoo of an owl. But that
So
was the basic idea of getting it done.
yeah, for me to draw a tattoo on my body, it's just so difficult because I don't know what to draw first. And then I don't want to be a person that after seeing it after 5 years on my body, I'm bored of it. So I just can't make up my mind to make a tattoo on me. You also talked a little bit about agro tourism. How is it going to help us?
So, as we spoke about how animals have started getting or started adapting to agricultural fields as their natural habitat, slowly as we are moving into their own land, uh, people can use this opportunity uh, to keep their agriculture going, plus have another source of economic benefit by getting people to show their agriculture plus the wildlife that goes around in their agricultural field. So it just goes hand in hand. And once they get the importance and understand that they are going to earn some extra money by showing these animals to all the people who come over here, they are in turn or in return going to protect these animals, and which is conservation. So that is
Uh,
how agrotourism can help.
and how was the wildlife 10 years ago, and what significant changes um, has it made in the past, I would say, a decade?
So, like going back to the earlier question, you can actually start agrotourism in Wagori, saying that come over, we can have local food, and at night I can show you around a couple of leopards on my land.
Yeah, I'll have to keep those leopards into captivity if I'm publicizing that I have leopards on my land.
You don't need to actually just plant sugarcane, and you'll have them residing all throughout the year. You
Yeah.
just need to know where they are seen.
So people in my village actually have complained to the forest department because this is wildlife, and you can't be so close to the wildlife. Obviously, it's not good. So these people from the forest department come and set up these cages to capture the leopards, but not every time they are able to capture. There are also some cubs, so now it's not just the male or female, it's their entire families are breeding into these sugar canes. So I think we are supporting a whole family now.
See, that is how you promote your tourism.
Yeah, so what
So
changes has it made in the last decade when it comes to wildlife? Like, I'll give you an example. uh, I was in the Glacier National Park last year, which is in Montana, the northern state of the US.
mhm.
So back in those days, I would say 25, 30 years ago, like 3 decades ago, these mountains were snow clad. Like there was snow, or you can say ice, on the entire mountain peaks. But now most of these snow has disappeared on the lower ends of the mountain, and there's just snow
Mhm.
on top. So that's the effect of the environment. So that is the climate change that has happened or affected in the past uh, 3 decades, 4 decades on this Glacier National Park. So when it comes to wildlife, what significant changes has it made in the past few decades?
So, as you give an example of Montana and how the snow cover or snow line has slowly started receding, similar is the case in our Himalayas. So, So animals like snow leopards and Pallas cat or monals or any other animals which are basically found on higher altitudes have started moving higher because the kind of temperatures and conditions and snow that they need is slowly moving up, and the snow and all the temperature conditions on the lower ends have started heating up. So similarly, there is a huge push which results into massive migration of birds from northern India to southern India. So once during winters, which is a harsh season in the north, a number of bird species actually migrate down to south, which has favorable temperatures. So uh, I'm sure these migration patterns have started changing with the changes in temperatures and climatic conditions over the years. But otherwise, uh, a number of animals which cannot migrate or do not usually migrate from one area to the other have either started adapting to whatever they can find, or they are just perishing off. One of the two. It
So,
is either end.
what is the message that you would like to give to people in terms of conserving the wildlife and conserving the environment?
First and foremost, just have mutual respect. Respect the wildlife will respect you back. Keep a safe distance, they'll keep a safe distance from you. We have actually crossed the limit of safe distance. We have started encroaching their land, which is why they are entering our homes now. So that is how it goes from both the sides. So once we start respecting the animals and the wildlife or the environment, it will respect us back and just get a system to balance. So it's not a simple thing to explain of what can be done to help conserve or help the environment, because there are so many factors involved in it, all the way from rivers, plants, soil, uh, animals, insects, birds, everything. So, but the major thing is knowing their importance and respecting its existence in our system.
And last, I would like to thank you for such great information. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you and how can you help them?
Either there is social media, either Facebook, Instagram, or uh, people can just note down my email address and shoot an email.
I'll
I will
put
always be up for it.
I'll put your information in the show notes. But Pratik, thank you so much for doing this, and we should do one more session like this sometime soon.
Definitely, definitely. We haven't touched any of the tourism part at all, like most of it. Neither of the camps or fun that we had. So when we spoke about having this conversation, I was actually recalling all the memories, the way we scared the shit out of a few people while being on cabs,
I
just to
mean,
pull their leg
we can
and
still talk if you have energy to talk.
I definitely have energy. I'm
Let's do
up.
it.
I don't have any problem with that.
So let me give a background. So Pratik and I both met through Pugmax. Pugmax is an organization in Pune that conduct winter and summer camps for wildlife and adventure. So kids or adults who like wildlife and adventure did enroll into these camps at Pugmax. And what we did at Pugmax were we went through a training of 6 to 8 months to become an instructor. And Pratik and I were both instructors at Pugmax, and we conducted these summer and winter camps for people. um, so that way we have common connections and a lot of common friends and amazing memories through Pugmarks. I still remember the Bhimar Shankar trek that
Exactly.
it, the experiences that I have through Pugmarks were amazing because I got skills of public speaking. um, I was I was a very introvert kind of a person. Uh,
Same here, same. Like Pugmarks as an organization or that entire schedule of training or camping has actually shaped the kind of person that I am today. Like as you said, uh, similarly, I was an introvert who couldn't speak to people. I still remember the way I introduced myself, shivering on the stage, scared of all of you people sitting in the front, almost 40 odd of them. And now conducting awareness sessions with around 200 people in the front without any stage fright or anything. That is a major transition for me from
Dude,
being an introvert to
I
an extrovert.
I still remember this was our first training session where Monish
Oh
had
God.
asked everybody, like, one by one, come on stage and explain why you want to be an instructor. And I wasn't expecting this, that I have to go and speak in front of 50, 60 people. But I was fucking scared. And then when I went on the stage, I was like, I watched the Bear Grylls show, and I was fascinated by what he does, and that's why I want to be an instructor. And everybody started laughing. It was so embarrassing for me. I can't explain, dude. But they they did a very good job by training us in adventure and wildlife. So
Absolutely.
I still remember we used to go to Panchgani to do all the adventure training, and then we went to Bhima Shankar to do the wildlife training.
Wildlife part.
They pretty much understood I wasn't great at wildlife, so I was never given a wildlife camp. I'm pretty sure you would have gotten all of those wildlife camps, but I was good at adventure, so
You
I
know,
went.
actually, it happened the other way around for me. While the entire set of or part of freelancing and camping, I barely did any wildlife camps. I was always on to adventure camps and showing wildlife while on being the adventure background camps over there. So it was the other way around for me.
Yeah, everything was so beautiful. Like you got, first of all, you got to travel for free. It's the
Exactly.
best kind of
And
job.
what, like a step further, you got paid for traveling.
Yeah, you got paid for traveling, you got the travel allowances, you got daily wages, and you got to meet so many people. So for people who like traveling, this was the best job that they could have. And while you are still a student, I still remember some of my campers were elder to me, and I was giving command to them that, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that, do this, and everybody was kind of listening to you, and you were
It
the
was fun
coolest.
pretending to be an adult compared to that of them.
Yeah, you were the coolest guy in the camp, no matter wherever you go. I had so much fan following, dude, at that time. After the
Same.
camp, I
That was one of the highlights of camping.
yeah, that was one of the highlights. So many of my campers connected with me on Facebook, Instagram, and all of it was so beautiful. Uh, Plus, all of the local instructors in those Himalayan region camps. The local instructor at Nainital, they were the coolest people that I've ever met.
And they are so sweet and they are so welcoming. Like you always want to just keep visiting that place for the kind of people there.
Yeah, I used to bother Pugmag's Rupesh sir every time
Rupesh.
that give me a Cloud9 camp, give me a rafting camp, and uh, I'm pretty sure everybody, it was a dream for everybody to go on one Cloud9 camp and to be an instructor at one of those rafting camps. It was great, dude. I had the best time of my life from 2011 to 2013. I still miss this.
Same.
uh, I think after going back, I'm going to go and do something similar, get connected to some of the organization and start being an instructor again, because
Oh, definitely.
I find happiness in that. Like it it wasn't that we were earning great money out of that, but it was never for the
It
money.
was never about money. Yeah, exactly.
It was always about fun.
It was always about the experience, the places we got to explore. The people that we met, everything, everything
Anirudh
apart
sir,
from the money. Anirudh
Anirudh
sir,
Chowji,
Monish.
one of the greatest persons I've met. Monish, Tanvi ma'am, everybody was so nice. Dude, I remember this was my one Panchgani camp, and I was conducting the rappelling activity.
Mhm.
These It was a small age group camp. I think these kids were second to fifth standard or something. While I was busy in the rappelling or rock climbing activity, one of those two, um, these small kids were playing amongst themselves, and two of the kids come running to me and tell me that this guy fell on the rock. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, no, no, you need to come, he's bleeding. And
For that.
he cracked his eyebrow open,
For it.
and it
Arre,
was
arre, arre.
bleeding. And I was fucking shit scared because I was the camping instructor, and this happened in my supervision. I called the Pugmark's head office. I told them this happened. They're like, you need to calm down. You need to calm down. And then we did all the first aid on the site, and then we took him to the hospital. Got He actually got like 6 stitches or something. And
Yeah.
then the most difficult thing I had to do in my life was call that kid's parents and tell them
And
that your
inform them.
inform them that your kid has got stitches. But I thought that I'm screwed, dude. They're going to come there and slap me. But his parents took it in such a nice
Sport.
way. Yeah, in a sporting manner, and they actually were pretty cool with it. They were like, yeah, we know our kid, he's like that only, like he needs constant supervision. But one thing I realized in those camps were these kids who were so happy, away from their cell phones, away from their TV screens, and enjoying the nature.
Enjoying all the nature. Yeah.
So,
Being free and away from their parents who are constantly nagging them for something or that.
dude, nowadays I see these kids, small kids, they are not even 2-year old. All they're doing every time is having a big
Watching
iPad.
YouTube videos.
Yeah, watching YouTube videos. And these parents are handing their kids these iPads, and so that the kids don't disturb them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't
It
know
is so
where.
sad. It is such a sad state compared to what the way we grew up and what the kids nowadays do.
I still remember I
So,
got my first cell phone in the 10th standard.
oh, I got my first in 12th.
12th.
Not even 10th.
These kids are 2-year old and they have an iPad plus a cell phone. They know everything about everything. Uh, but I feel that it's good that technology came late in our life. We at least had
Oh, yes.
fun
I so agree on this.
playing in the soil, eating soil, eating chalk, doing all unhygienic things that we could have possibly done. It
I
was a
remember
golden time,
once
man.
we were on a camp in Penj, and as usual, I was conducting a nature trail, and we came across a tree that is mahua. And mahua is actually famous for the liquor that is made out of it. uh, and it is famous all throughout the country, and gives a super kick and everything. I never got to taste it up till today, but I knew that the flowers of the tree taste really good. So I actually took all the campers to the tree, and the tree was flowering in that season, which is in the summers. So everyone got to taste mahua flowers. Camp happened nicely. We got to see a few leopards and everything. And at the end of the camp, we used to ask all the campers to enter a feedback form. And one of the stupid campers, he or she, I don't remember who it was, just mentioned, it was an excellent camp. We got to taste mahua on it. And I had to mention in the bracket mahua flowers and not the liquor. We didn't get the kids drunk.
Yeah, I remember once I conducted a camp for the Ambani school in Mumbai,
Oh, Dhirubhai.
Dhirubhai Ambani school. all these kids were so rich, and I confiscated everybody's cell phone. They were mad at me initially, but later when I made them real, when I conducted all the drills where we do all
Uh-huh.
these icebreaker activities, although these students studied with each other every day, they still didn't know that side of their
Yeah, exactly.
classmate. And I just made them realize that, you know, you should actually speak with the person who's next to you, try and understand that person. And I think I made pretty good friendships on that camp with
Oh,
between
I'm sure you
classmates.
did. Sure you did. We
um
actually played a game to confiscate phones while one of these such camps. You remember the game Queen of Sheba?
yes,
The queen demands a certain few things, and at the very last round, we just ask them to
cell phones.
gather whatever number of cell phones that they can, and they happily got them all together, including our phones and everything. We're like, nice, you just helped us ease our job. And then just took away our phones because of course we needed to communicate with all the further people and of the staff or the teachers who were there, and then just told them that you're not getting your cell phones till the end of the camp. They were so disappointed with that move, but it was fun.
I used to enjoy these kids camps a lot, but why I was doing engineering at that time. So I used to get to go on these engineering camps too. And everybody was my age. We used to have a blast on this camp, an absolute blast. I still have a lot of memories with me, and I can't forget them for my lifetime. It was fun. It
It
was
is
fun.
etched. It is etched for lifetime. It's not going to go.
All right, man. It was fun talking to you. It was really
After
amazing.
such a long time, almost a decade, I'm guessing.
Almost a decade. And we should do this again with many more new topics.
Oh, I'm definitely up for it.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, see you soon, man.